The purposes for today's class is basically, as I mentioned, I know I sent out an email kind of giving you guys a heads up as to the different classes that we're going to be going on this month. The way that I purposely structured it was to do, or what I tried to do, I should say, is my classes on Wednesdays. They're in the morning. Everything will be recorded and posted to the site, so you can always catch the replay. But those classes are going to deal with kind of individual topics. So like I know next week on Wednesday, I'm going to talk about what you can do to get your loops if you want to download your old loops. Another class is going to be focused only on the compliance side of things. So I'm going to tackle those like specific topics that way. Today's class, and I think I have another one or two on Thursdays, are going to be set up to walk through the process from start to finish. So that's kind of what we're going to do today. Because again, the point of this is just getting the repetition down. You're going to find that you're doing the same thing over for different clients. So that's why I wanted to make sure I did that. And then on top of that, I'm going to have 2 sessions this month, which are like almost like in-person kind of workshop-y type classes where people can come in with their questions. We can still go through the process. We can tackle any of those issues. So that'll give people that opportunity. And then if that wasn't enough, I also have a link on the DocuSign tab on KW Town Square. So if people want to schedule their one-on-one sessions with me, we can do that too. And that'll be for either in person or via Zoom, whatever people are comfortable with. So that's just for October. We'll be doing a lot of the same stuff for November. And just again, it's just boiling down, getting comfortable with it. So
is there a drop dead date? Like we're cutting you off dot loop this day?
So dot loop is done, not done. Dot loop is going to be done on December 31st. Once that comes, we're no longer updating the forms. We're no longer going there for, compliance purposes, none of that. Having said that, you'll still be able to log in. You'll still be able to access all of your old loops, anything that you've started. That won't go away. We just won't be updating it anymore. So.
And you can't automatically bring our loops over. It's something we have to do?
No, because that's the thing. The only way that you, might be bringing them over is if you're actively involved in one. But in that case, if something's already closed, you'll be able to download those if you want. You'll still be able to go into that loop and get all those materials. What you can do when it comes to that, if you're in between a transaction during that time, I'll help you. All you'll have to do is just download the forms out of .loop and just re-upload them into DocuSign. That's kind of going to be the quick little stopgap.
So if we don't move it over and we leave closed loops in .loop, how long will we be able to access them there?
Legally, 6 years.
Okay, so it's not immediately we have to rush and download everything.
No. And the MCA office is also required to have a copy of everything. So we'll still always have those files too. Yeah, so it's not so much of a doom and gloom kind of thing, which should be reassuring for most people. So, that's always good to know too. Yep. So if you guys are ready, then like I said, what I'm going to do for the purposes of today's class is just walk through the process. So if you've caught any of the other recordings, some of this will be familiar. It's literally the structure for today's class is to put in a contact, set them up with the opportunity, and then go into DocuSign and fill out and send the paperwork. So that's the process start to finish. So feel free to ask any questions along the way. I'll chime in with a couple of notes along the way. I'll stop at certain points and we'll just kind of walk through it. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Okay, all right. Give me 1 second. Let me pull up my screen. All right. Okay. So a couple important things to note, a couple little important things that I want to set the stage for with everybody. Number one, most commonly asked question, do I have to come into command first? My answer is yes. I recommend it because, and here's why. The way that DocuSign and Command are going to work together, really the main reason we're doing this is because the MCA office will be able to go into Command here. This is where you're going to submit all your final paperwork to submit to the MCA office. So this is going to be the new way to kind of pull in that information. So that is the main reason. Having said that, it's going to make your lives a lot easier if you do go into Command first, add the contact, create the opportunity, and go into DocuSign that way. And again, that has to do more so with the MCA side of things. They'll already have that information in here. And by doing it this way, whatever information you fill out in Command when we walk through this first part will feed into DocuSign. So when you add the person's contact, obviously that information is going to pull. If you know the listing, if you're working, jumping ahead here, but if you're working with a buyer and you know the property, you'll be able to click a button, it'll pull in the listing info, and that information will feed in. So again, the whole point of this is to kind of connect all these different systems that are currently existing and bring it all in under one roof. So it's very important to do it that way. And it's also important that you enter them in Command first, because let's say you decide to skip this step and just create it in DocuSign right off the bat, you would end up actually doing duplicate work, because you would still have to go back into Command when all is said and done, enter that person's information. And then the issue with that is the two systems wouldn't be married. So you would have to basically, again, duplicate your effort. And there's no point in doing that. It takes a couple minutes, you put them in Command and then move on. Once you create them in Command, once you create that contact and create that opportunity and go into DocuSign, from that point forward, if you need to send any paperwork to your client, you can then just do it straight from DocuSign. You don't have to log into Command every single time. You just have to log into it that first time. And then of course, probably once more when it comes time to submit all your signed paperwork. That's really it. So that's why I say, please go into Command first. And if you don't want to use Command for anything else, no problem. No worries. You don't need to know anything else other than what I'm going to show you today. Okay. All right. So first thing we're going to do, log into your Command. If for whatever reason you were doing this and your DocuSign isn't connected accordingly, no big deal. Reach out to me and I'll help you, and we'll make sure that it's connected. But what we're going to do first is we're going to add in a contact. So I'm just going to go log in. I'm going to click on that red box and I'm going to go into contacts. Actually, okay. So when you first go click into your contacts, you are going to click add a contact in the upper right-hand corner. That's going to pull up this contact card. And the most important thing to note for everyone, all you need is their name and their email. That's all you need right now. You can always add more information later, but just to get you through this, all you need is their name and their email. If you're working with someone, for example, if you're working with, this is for a listing, and it's a couple or a husband and wife or 2 or 3 individuals, whatever the case may be, you will have to add those people in separately. Again, just because they do have separate email addresses, that's how they will get the paperwork, just like .loop. So just, good to know that. So in this case, let's give it a name. I've come up with so many test names at this point. Anybody have a name? You want to throw a name out? I've done enough John Smiths and Jane Does. So let's do
Mary Wall.
Mary Wall. Thank you. That works. So you're just going to put in their name, and then we'll come up with just a dummy test email. That's totally fine. So we'll do Mary Wall 123 at test.com. I'm not going to send, even though we're going to go through the process today, I'm not going to actually send the paperwork at the end. I'll just take you to that last step. So I'm not too concerned with, making sure this is going to go out. But again, just same thing, just their name and their email. That's all. And then you will, sorry, I'm just moving
Wait, before you go on, if you had to add another person, let's tell them how to do that from here.
Yeah. So you're going to want to add this one person first. So okay. Name, email, and then just click create. Okay, and then that will create that contact. So same thing, let's say you want to go in and add another. Let's say Mary is married to Robert or Bob. Let's do Bob Wall. So you would enter his name, and again, whatever his email is going to be. So Bob, I don't know, just type in some numbers. Okay. Name, email, and again, same thing, create. So now what you're going to do is, if you're working with either, again, if it's a husband and wife or a couple or whatever the case may be, just pick one of their names, whoever you want, I guess, to, basically be seller number 1 and seller number 2. It doesn't really matter. But go ahead and you're going to want to search for their name. So in this case, if we added Mary, type in Mary. Got a couple Marys. Hold on. Mary Wall. Okay. So there's who we just added. And all you need to do is click on her name, and that's going to take you into her contact that we just created. Okay. So, bless you. Is that a someone's? Oh, I thought someone sneezed. Sorry. Okay, so we created that contact. Sorry, I got one more person coming in. Okay. So we created that contact, and just so you guys know, just because it's good to know, on the left-hand side, when you click into that contact, it's basically going to be their title card, as I call it. That's where all of their contact information is going to be. So you're going to have, their name, their email. If you put in a phone number, that'll appear here as well. And then any other information you plug in for them. Again, not needed for any of this, but just good to know. When you click into that contact, on the right-hand side is going to be a timeline of sorts. And again, all you need to know for the purposes of doing your paperwork is when you enter that contact, you'll see there are a couple options. There's an option that says opportunities. So click on opportunities. And what we're going to do is, if they don't have an opportunity already, which they aren't, they're brand new, we're just going to click create opportunity, which is the button right here. Okay. And so when we click that, that's going to pull up this opportunity card. Now, again, I'm going to reiterate this a million times, but again, I like people to know the reason we're doing this, and the reason you're filling this portion out is because, again, this is going to help the MCA office. So I'll actually explain it as we walk through this, but let me start from the top to the bottom, and I'll explain what everything is. Anything with a little red asterisk is going to be required. Anything else that doesn't have an asterisk, don't worry about it. I'm not worried about it. You don't need to be worried about it either. Just the options that have the little red asterisk. Okay. So in that case, let's start here. So Market Center, again, is always going to revert to our Burnsville Basking Ridge Market Center. So you won't have to do anything with that. Team. So the only way that this is going to come into play is if you are set up in command as a team. For them, it's not much different. All this will have them do is, if it's a particular member of the team who's working on this transaction, you would just be able to, or they would be able to select their name as the team member, basically spearheading the transaction. But again, I'm not worried about showing solo agents that just as much. No need to ruffle any feathers or confuse anybody. So if you're not part of the team, you won't have anything to do there. Next, we have opportunity type. And if you click on that, it's going to give you 4 options. Now, again, this is where I like to bring the MCA office into the picture. The reason that you're selecting an opportunity type is because that's going to help them keep track of the different transactions on their end. So whether it's a listing, whether it's a buyer, a landlord, or a tenant, that just helps them organize that transaction so they can clearly see how many they have in each category or what's required for each. So for the purposes of today, let's just do a listing. We're just going to select a listing. Whatever you do select, I will jump ahead one step. Whatever you select is going to impact the checklist for what's required to submit to the MCA office. So much like you do now in .loop, how we have that checklist of, submitting a CIS and the contract and all of that. What you select here is essentially what is required for that checklist. So if you select listing, it's going to require all of the listing docs. If you do a tenant, it's going to require all the documents for a tenant. So just good to understand that. That helps in the MCA office too. So we're doing a listing, so we're going to select listing. Okay, next to that, we have the owner, which again is going to be the name of the agent who is doing this transaction. So of course, I'm doing it out of mine. It's going to show me, should show your name as well. Now, under that, we have client. Because we started this with Mary Wall, she, in this case, if it's a listing, it's going to show as the seller. So Mary would automatically be listed as the first seller. And now, Mary Ellen, to your point, if it is, let's say a couple or whatever, you'll see that gives you the option next to it for a co-seller. And so if you click on that drop down, you can then type in the other person's name as long as you've added them as a contact. So again, that's very important to note. If you are going to have two sellers, two buyers, whatever the case may be, they do need to be entered as separate contacts. So in this case, what did I say, Bob?
Bob.
So in that case, I'm going to type in Bob. I got a couple Bobs in here, but I'm going to select Bob Wall. And again, simple as that. That's all you're going to do there. Let me take a quick sip of water. Next up, we have opportunity name. So again, we're going to tell you guys the same thing that we say with .loop for your opportunity name. If it's for a listing and you know the property, do the property address. If you're working with a buyer, obviously do the buyer's name. You can always change that later, so don't worry about it too much. But again, for the purposes of today, let's put in an example. Let's say they live at 155, where do I live? Nob Hill. So again, let's just say that's the address. Let's say it's in Basking Ridge. Again, just so you know, and just so when the MCA office does see it, they have an idea of, okay, here's the property or here's the buyer. Again, can change it later, just good to put for now. The next couple right here, custom tags, estimated close date, and estimated listing price. Don't worry about those yet. They're not required. I'm not even going to cover them yet. That's like DocuSign 2.0. You're not going to need them at all to do anything to be able to get to this point. So not going to worry you with those yet. Nothing needed. You can always enter that information later. The last three here are required. So you're going to have commission rate. For that, put that 2.5%. If it's a situation where that commission rate is any different, you'll be able to change that later if for whatever reason you would need to. But it will require you to put something in the meantime. And then next we have opportunity phase. And so if you click on that, it's going to give you a couple options here. Cultivate, appointment, and active. Again, this isn't really too important, but it is going to require you to select one. What I will recommend is if you're coming in to do this paperwork, the best way to put it is chances are it's going to be active. You're actively sending them that paperwork, or you're actively gearing up for a listing or working with buyers. Those other options, that cultivate an appointment, that has to do more with this opportunity section in command. And I'm not concerned with people really, using that at this point, solely focused on getting you guys into DocuSign and getting you comfortable. So most of the time, if not all the time, you'll select active for this part. And then with that, it's also going to have you select that opportunity stage. Again, same thing. It's going to give you the options of staging, showing, and negotiations. Not worried about that either. Again, chances are you're getting to this point, you're going to be in the negotiation stage. Just take it as, take it as far as you will go. The reason that it gives you those options is because there may be some folks who use command, who put contacts into command and who have them set up on opportunities. And essentially what that does is they might have entered this person's information months ago. At that point, they might have been cultivating, trying to get them to buy or sell. And then finally, they moved them along their pipeline and they're showing them. And then finally, they're ready to list or putting in an offer. That's all that does. But again, for the purposes of just doing the paperwork, just select active negotiations. You're past that point. You're in here, you're doing the paperwork, you got it. So then once you get to that, we're just going to hit create. We're going to create that opportunity. So once you do that, you'll see you're still in that contact card like we were, but now it's created that opportunity for you. So what we're going to do now is we're going to leave contacts. We're now going to go into that opportunity section. So I'm going to click on, again, whatever the property address or the name of the buyers that you're working with. Just go ahead and click on that, and that's going to take you into their opportunity. So once you're here, you'll see that it does give you some information. Looks like a lot at first, but again, you're only really at first going to be working in two sections, and that is the details section and that is the documents section. So it's going to always take you into details first, and you'll see that it just basically, similar to Dotloop, it has some of that information in here if you've entered it already. You know, just basic information, the opportunity name, the market center, all that stuff. If you know any of this other information or you want to include any of this other information, you can click on these little edit buttons and it'll allow you to go in and make any updates or edits or changes. The more that you plug into this page, whatever you plug in here will feed into DocuSign. So again, that's the idea behind this. Fill it in here, it'll feed into DocuSign. One thing that I will say while I'm here, and again, this, I guess if anything, I should select a listing that's already active. So in that case, let's do that. Since we're using the example of a listing, although I came up with this fake listing for them, 155 Nob Hill, what's really cool about this part of command is that if you know the listing, again, this is going to be the case, and I think, I forget, this question did come up the other day. If you're doing this the first time, unfortunately, the information won't populate yet, because again, you're activating the listing, you're just getting the listing. So obviously it may not be live yet, but this is probably a better example if you're working with buyers. If you're working with a buyer and you know the property that they're putting an offer in on or whatever the case may be, there's a button here that says select from listings. And so if you click on that, you can actually search for the listing and it'll pull all that information in.
I'm sorry, I missed that. Where was that button?
So right at the top, when you create this opportunity, you'll have
there it
obviously
is.
the opportunity.
Yep.
Select from listings, and then you can actually search by, I think you can also search by MLS number as well, or the street address. That's, again, probably not going to come in handy as much for a listing, but especially with buyers, it'll save you some of that information. It'll save you some of that trouble. It'll automatically pull in, you know, the property address, the information, all of that. So for example, I don't know if I have this same class next week, but the next time that I do a class like this, we'll do a buyer and I'll show you how it is for a buyer. We'll select a buyer, we'll come up with a property address and we'll pull it in that way. But again, since we're just doing a listing, in that case, you're not going to be able to select that, but good to know for the future. So having said all that, again, fill in as much detailed information as you can. Once you're good with that, you're going to click over into the documents section. And so that's going to take you to a page that looks like this. And I don't know if it's next week or the week after, I have that on the calendar. I'm going to teach one specific class just on this section here, which is how you would ultimately submit your documents to your completed documents to send off to the MCA office. That's really what this section is for. That's, you know, ultimately why we're doing what we're doing is this documents section will actually be where you submit all of that paperwork. And you'll see here, because we selected a listing, we have these set up already to basically match the checklist that is already in Dotloop. So you'll see here that all of those required documents, the CIS, the listing agreement, the input sheet, seller's disclosure, all of that stuff, it's listed right here as to what's required. So again, that way the MCA office will know, hey, we've got all of these documents. If you don't submit one, they'll be able to, quickly see, hey, I see you didn't submit your seller's disclosure, please drop it in. And I don't know if this was, I forget at this point who's asked this in the past, I apologize, but I know the question has come up, how will we drop in those documents? The nice part about this is once we create the transaction, once we go into DocuSign, once you fill out all your paperwork, you'll be able to come back to this page and it'll give you the option. It's not showing yet because we haven't created this transaction just yet, but there'll be an option here that says attach files from DocuSign. And so the two systems will actually work together, and you'll basically just click here. It'll pull up with that document, and it'll just automatically feed in, and it'll show right here that you've submitted it. It'll show that you've uploaded it, and then you'll click this button that says submit to MC. It's going to be as simple as that. We're not there yet, so don't worry about it yet, but I wanted to just kind of set the stage so you guys know, why we're here. So take another sip of water. Any questions so far?
Hi, Sam. This is where I don't understand. Were we supposed to type in the MLS number back a few steps when we're trying to fill in the general information, or do we click that pencil? Where would I type the MLS number in to pull in all that information like I used to do in Dotloop?
So in that case, because we're doing an example for a listing, let's say the listing's not active yet.
Okay.
That's going to be why. If you're working with a buyer though, you would be able to type in that MLS info. Obviously, if they're putting in an offer, that'll automatically pull in all that information.
Can you just tell me where I'm supposed to do that? Because I've been doing a few practice ones during the week. Is there a place you type in the MLS number to get that?
So if you're in the details tab,
yes.
Where if you go up just a little, there it says select from listings.
Okay, I guess I'd have to see you in person in that. I don't see that at all. I see details, but I don't see select from listings, and I don't want to waste your time on that. So
no worries. It should appear right above that. There should be a button that says, select from listings. And then you would be able to type in the MLS number there, and it would pull in the property info.
That sounds like an easy fix. I'll just figure that out. Okay, with you. All right, go on. I don't want to hold up the group.
No worries. Okay, I think I covered everything that I wanted to in Command. So everything we just did, that's really the extent that you're going to use Command until the time comes that you're submitting your completed paperwork to the MCA office. So I like to just tell people that because I know some people don't want to use Command. We're not trying to get you to. This is really primarily for the MCA office, again, to help kind of keep track of those transactions. So if you do everything we just did, if you create that contact, you go into the opportunities. We're in the Documents tab currently, and we're going to click the button that says Start a Transaction. And so as soon as you click on that, it will then take you over to DocuSign, okay? If you're doing it for the first time during the day, kind of like I am, it's going to have you sign in. So it's just going to ask you, obviously, for your email. I'll hit continue, and then it's going to ask you for your password.
And where do I get all this? Is it our KW password?
So do you know if your account, DocuSign account is connected?
Haven't a clue.
Okay. After this, send me an email with your Command login.
Yeah.
And I'll be able to go into the settings and see if you're connected.
Okay.
And if not, it's going to be a quick, easy little process. Yeah, I can work with you separately on that. No problem.
Okay.
But once you get it, once you have that set up, you'll do exactly as I'm doing. You'll just log in.
I mean, honestly, I don't even know what the MCA office is. Is that where paperwork is completed?
Yeah, so yeah, as a new agent, the MCA office, they essentially, they work with compliance to make sure that when you submit all of your paperwork, whether it's for a listing, whether you're working with a buyer or a seller, or whatever the case may be. They're the one who makes sure that all of your paperwork is filled out, that you've submitted all the necessary information, and then ultimately our MCA office then cuts, your commission check in order to pay you. But in order for us to pay you, you have to make sure that all of your documents are compliant, that everything is filled out accordingly and correct. Okay, so
So so start a transaction and you got here to the room?
yep,
Okay.
you'll sign right in. So now
Okay.
you are now moved out of Command. You are now only in DocuSign. And so this is a good point to note that if you are, once we do what we just did, let's say we do everything else today, and then tomorrow you got to come in and you need to send them some other piece of paperwork or something else. You don't have to go through Command. You'll be able to literally go to DocuSign.com and log in just like we just did. So again, the whole point is when you're first doing it, you just set them up in Command. You create this DocuSign room, as it's called. And then after that, anytime you need to come in, you can just go straight in through DocuSign. So you don't have to go through
The
that.
same thing we did with Dotloop.
Yep.
You went into Dotloop direct.
Yep, you'll be able to do that. Now, because we did what we just did, we created, it's called a room. So different than Dotloop, a lot of this is the same, but it's different terminology. So you would go into Dotloop and you would create a loop. In this case, you're going into DocuSign and you're creating a room. Don't ask me why all the names have to be different, but that's just the easiest way to think of it. So we've created a room where we will now pull in all of the documents that we need to get, that we need to provide for our clients to sign. For the purposes of today, again, I just want to show you guys what you need to know. When you first go into a room like this, we're really only going to work in 3 of these tabs right here: details, documents, and envelopes. And that's all I'm going to cover with today, because that's, again, the most important to get started. Let me start, actually, let me click over into details first. So for those of you who are very comfortable with Dotloop, this should look somewhat familiar. Much like you would do in Dotloop, you would plug in as much information as you can. This will give you a bit more information, obviously, than what we put into Command, but you'll see that some of it's already been fed over, including the name, the email. Again, if you were working with a buyer, that buyer property information would feed into this part. But basically, you'll see here, it's all kinds of information. So if it's a listing, you can put in the listing date, the expiration date, buyer and seller information, closing details, all of that. So very similar to what you were doing in Dotloop. So if you need to make a change or an edit, which for the purposes of today, let me go and do that. You'll see there's a button in the upper right-hand corner that says edit. And so I'm just going to click on that, and that's going to open up all of these boxes for us to be able to make any of those edits. So just because, when it comes time for us to fill out the paperwork here in a few minutes, let me put in some listing details. Let me put the listing date. Let's see, today's the 7th. Let's say we're going to list this on the 11th. Let's say, this is all placeholder information, by the way, and I'm just, kind of clicking on a few. Let's say it's going to go until March 1st. So it's going to be 699,000. Don't have any offer information yet, none of that. Let's see. Let me put Mary's cell phone. I'll put mine. Let's see, what else do we want to put? That's enough. That's enough for now. I'm not going to worry about that too much. Again, just like Dotloop, you're going to put in as much information as you can or as much information as you want to. What you put into this page here will feed into your documents and all of your paperwork. So that's like the most important thing to know. It'll save you time. However much you drop in here will feed into your paperwork. Having said that, if you need to manually make any changes when you get to the paperwork, you'll be able to do that as well. So no worries there. So if you filled in everything, you're good with it. You'll see in the bottom right-hand corner, you can hit save. That's just what I'm going to do here. Okay. So we filled in our details. Now it's time to get to the paperwork. So now I'm going to click back over into the Documents tab. And of course, if you're setting this up for the first time, there's not going to be anything in your Documents section just yet. In order to access all of the paperwork and all of the documents, you'll see in the upper right-hand corner here, there is a button that says Add. You're going to go ahead and click on Add. When you do, it's going to give you a couple different options. Admittedly, for the most part, most people aren't going to do anything here with Zip Form or Dropbox or Google Drive. Not really too concerned about that. What we're about to click into is DocuSign Forms. But before I do that, and here's a good example, Mary Ellen, to your point from earlier, let's say we're making the switch and you're in the middle of a transaction and you're between Dotloop and DocuSign. You can take whatever forms you have in Dotloop currently, download them like you would, just save them to your computer, and then you can click the computer button here and just upload those right into DocuSign. That's the easiest way. You'll then be able to add in any boxes or anything you need to do. That comes, in a couple of steps, but that'll at least allow you to upload whatever documents you need into your room, much like you would do with your loop now. Okay. For today, we're going to click into DocuSign Forms. That's where we're going to access all of the appropriate paperwork.
Oh, I didn't get to.
Okay. I'm going to spend just a few minutes here kind of talking about this section because I like everyone to fully understand kind of how it works. So a little slightly different than Dotloop, but not too much different. You'll see on the left-hand side, there are going to be two sections for you. There's going to be one that says groups and one that says libraries. The way that DocuSign is set up, I'm going to start with libraries first, is it's connected to all of the different MLSs in New Jersey. So obviously you're going to see, CJMLS, GSMLS, Monmouth Ocean, all of those. It's also going to have the NJAR forms. And there is also a library that says KW 825. Those are to explain everything. So obviously the MLSs will contain the MLS forms. So if you were doing a listing in GSMLS or whatever the case may be, it'll have those appropriate forms. What's nice about it is because we're connected to this, you will always be working with the most up-to-date form. I know that I think in the past has been an issue with Dotloop. Nice to know now that whatever form you're using is the most up-to-date form because it's updated by those MLSs. Same with the forms for NJAR. Same thing. Those are going to be the most up-to-date forms. This KW 825 folder, that's going to contain all of those office-specific forms. So any other, office-specific requirements, those are going to be our personal forms. And kind of I don't want to say a catch-all, but it's going to be a place where if you need any other stuff, it's kind of going to live in there. Now that I've explained that though, chances are you're not really going to go into this library section unless you really need a very specific form that I haven't already uploaded here into these individual group folders. So having said that, you'll see here, there's a list of groups. Best way to explain this is much like Dotloop when you go to create a loop. These are that's the exact naming convention that we currently have in Dotloop. So the idea is, of course, if you're, for today's example, let's say we're doing a GSMLS listing. When you click into that group, it's going to have all of that paperwork ready for you. And the paperwork that is in these groups have already been pulled in from the respective libraries. So if you go into, for example, the GSMLS listing docs group, those required forms from the MLS and from NJAR are already in there. So really, there's no reason you're going to have to go into libraries unless you really need something specific. And I say something like, what's one of those crazy forms that comes along every so often? Solar
55.
At 55, that's a good example.
Plus.
Yeah.
55 plus.
or the, yeah, 55 plus, or the solar panels, or the pool, or, you know, any of those that typically you may not need all the time, you can pull those right from these libraries. If you get to that point that you need those forms, let me know, I'll help you. It's quite simple. But again, I just wanted to point that out so you guys know. Having said all of that, you should be good with what's already provided in the groups folder. So that's what Sally and I are finishing up at the moment. I've so far finished, you know, GSMLS, CJMLS, the buyer's doc, all of those are filled out. We're going to be making some changes to some of the forms, mainly just our office specific forms. And we'll obviously be changing some of the names for those office specific forms. But again, nothing that you guys need to worry about. It shouldn't impact you in any way. So no worries there. What I will show you though, and this is going to be something important for everybody to know, is when you select whatever group you need. So we're going to do this GSMLS listing docs group. You're going to see here that it's going to have all of the forms that you're required. It's going to say required next to them. And that's going to be things like your listing, you know, commission agreement, the attorney general memorandum, seller's disclosure waiver. All of the requireds are what's currently on that checklist. So the same checklist that we have in .loop that says these must be submitted, it's going to show you here that those forms are required. So that'll make it easy. Having said that, these groups will also contain any additional materials that you may need. So you may need them, they're not required. You'll see that they're not going to have that little stamp next to them saying they're required, but if you ever need them, you can add them in. And that's things like the change form or coming soon, you know, a commission statement, any of that kind of stuff. So again, everything you need should be in here. I think the most important thing that I want to say today is if a form has come from the MLS, so we're in the GSMLS group, if the form has come directly from Garden State MLS, it's actually going to say GSMLS in front of it. So you'll see there's a form here that says GSMLS, GSMLS. Those come directly from Garden State. So we can't change the naming convention for those. They're always going to say GSMLS change form, GSMLS coming soon. The same goes for any forms from NJAR. Same thing, it's always going to say NJAR and then whatever the form is. The only ones that we have the ability to change are going to be our market center specific forms. But same thing, those are always going to start with KW 825. Perfect example. This is a great example right here. This is a form that is going to be changed. This is a market center specific form. It says KW 825, Central Jersey, checklist for listings, blah, blah, blah. It's a mess. But I'll add that one in so we can open it. But if you open it, funny enough, that's just a regular checklist for a listing form. But again, you'll see that when they uploaded all these forms last year or whenever it was prior to me, some of those names are still not fully correct. That doesn't impact you guys at all. The form is still compliant, the form is still correct. You can always manually change the names of these once you add them to your room. But for the time being, just good to know that, you know, that's kind of how the naming convention works. But again, it's always going to have the most up-to-date forms from the MLS and from NJAR. So that's great to know. And then we'll have our forms updated as well. So having said that, sorry I talked so much. I hope, was that clear for everybody for the most part?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Okay.
Men's and
So, don't worry, Jay, we'll get there. We'll get there. It's fine.
I just have a few questions. So
Yeah.
I see that the addendums. So when I know in the loop, you know, there's like addendums.
Mhm.
Are they here?
So yes.
Talking about
Oh,
a pool addendum, a underground tank addendum, those addendums.
Yes. Yep, that are required, you know.
got it.
For that
So yeah, a couple are in here. The
There they
only
are.
ones that are in here currently, I've taken exactly from what they are in .loop. So whatever was in the GSMLS listing docs when you went into .loop, those are the ones that are going to appear here. So as of right now, those are some like the addendum for new construction, short sale, sewage, etc. So not every single one is in there. So, you know, to your point, whether it's the pool or the 55 plus,
Pool.
you will just have to add those in manually. And I'll show you how to do that once we get to the next step. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so all you're saying is that they're here and you would click on that little box and add select. That's how it gets into the room.
Yep. Yep. Simple as that. So what you can do is you can either, if you go all the way to the top here, you'll see there's a box that'll allow you to check off everything. You can either do that, or obviously you're going to need all the required docs. You can check them off individually.
Right.
But let's, for the purposes of today, let's just say we want to do all the required docs. And how about, what was the one that I was on? We'll say the new construction. You can just check that off. That'll add all those forms into your room.
Mhm.
So you don't need to select everything. You can pick and choose what you want to put into your room. Yep. But anything that does have the required stamp next to it, obviously is going to be required. Yep.
So .loop already has them there. Once you click on what type of listing or transaction you're doing, it's automatically here. This is another step that we have to do because it's not automatically there, right?
No. So,
Yes.
well, so in
I just feel like there's so many more steps to just get to the basic where .loop is very simple to work with. This I feel is very difficult. And if you miss one step, you're lost. So
well, I don't know. I'm gonna push on that a little bit, because what I'm doing today is kind of literally going through step by step by step by step by step, covering all areas. So essentially what I'm doing is what's going to be repeated. So it's less a matter of, you know, what I'm doing here. I guess it's open to interpretation. And unfortunately, this is the process for it. So, you know, having said that, if you don't want to check off everything, all you have to do is check off this box here, and that'll put everything into your.
well, right. All I'm just saying is you have to check off in order to get these documents in your room in
Yeah.
order to do right. All I'm just saying is .loop, it's already there. You don't have to think about it. The only thing you have to just do is archive the ones that you don't even want sitting. That's it. That's all I'm saying is that this is just another step. I just have to get it in my head that I have to keep adding steps where .loop, it's just there. Everything.
Well, I was going to say, with that though, when you click on any of these groups, it won't let you add anything in until you check it off anyway. So it almost forces you to have to check them off.
Right, you have to. Right, now let me ask you a question. So if you're putting a listing in 2 or 3 separate MLSs,
Mhm.
so just say you're doing Monmouth and Garden State.
Mhm.
Now, Monmouth, to my knowledge, is they're happy with Garden State documents. They're fine. Where Central Jersey has their own documents.
Yes.
So if you're putting a listing in 2 different MLSs, what do you do?
So what you can do is like, if let me how about this? Let me stick with this example. I won't do all these. I'll just do all the requireds for the moment.
Sam, can I just ask why you have more required than I do? Mine say, I only have, I think, 6 that say required. So I don't know if I did something wrong.
No, so that's what we're gonna have to do is just in order to access all those forms, you will just have to put in your NERD's ID number in your settings.
I did do that already,
Okay.
and I don't know why it didn't take. So I guess I'll have to see you on that.
Yeah, just reach out.
That's
That's
like a
it.
personal, then I can just bring my laptop in, because it did ask me for device thing again, and I thought I had done all that, but that we'll just do separate.
Yeah, that's an easy fix, but that's a good question too, because there's gonna be some people that same thing, they're only gonna see some. And chances are those are the ones that are just for our market center. But in order to access the most up-to-date forms for the MLS and for NJAR, That's why it requires your NERDS ID number.
And I
So
think
then that
I
should show.
had it, I don't know why it didn't take it, but that's another thing. We could just do
Yeah.
that 1, 2, 3 in the office, I'm sure.
That's-
There's like a
yeah.
couple of, I have some problems a little bit there.
No worries. No
Okay.
worries.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
The addendums are required, but it's not required here. Like the
So,
pool.
yeah. So that's just what I'm working with Sally on at the moment.
Okay,
Yeah, because I only so far have set it up for the first portion of that checklist, that first section of required docs.
Okay.
So yeah, that'll be an easy one too. I just have to change them over to required.
and is a new contract in here? For buyers
Yes. Yeah, yep.
and the new discrimination law?
Believe so. So here, let me go ahead and add these into the room.
Hey, Sam, everything pretty much originates out of Command Center, right? Including the DocuSign. So when you and I met that first time, you're like, don't worry, man, you can't screw anything up. Just play with it, go through everything, it'll walk you through. Is that correct?
Say that again.
Pretty much originates from
Okay,
the,
let him believe that.
Wait, say that again.
Nothing.
everything much originates out of the Command Center, right?
What, are you talking about like the documents or?
Documents, the contacts, all of that good stuff.
So you'll put your contact information in Command. The documents themselves, when we get to this point, exist within DocuSign, which is separate from Command. Yeah, in terms of playing around with Command, that has more to do with like the designs and you know, the designs, the campaigns, the smart plans, all that stuff.
But I mean, as far as getting to the DocuSign, that'll be up there too, under commands? Or no?
And so you'll do what we did today. You'll create when you're accessing the paperwork,
Right,
you know, to work with a buyer or a seller or anything like that. You'll do what we did today. You'll create a contact, you'll create an opportunity, and you'll go into DocuSign.
of course.
Mhm.
Well, what about if I get a buyer that's reluctant to sign anything? Do I not work with them at that point, or what's up?
So when you get to that point, they, you know, if you're gonna work together, you will have to have them sign a, you know, a CIS and that information. So in order to work with them, you know, you will need to provide that. So if you're working with a buyer, you would put his name. You would get to this point where you can access the paperwork, and in that case, you can send off the CIS for a signature.
Okay,
You know, as a starting point.
okay.
Mhm. Yep. Okay. So real quick, now that we're here, because I know we have a few minutes left, I have another call.
Wait a minute, I'm confused. We clicked off documents and this is what we got. Okay,
Yes.
right?
Yes, it dropped all the documents that I selected into your room. So these were just all of the documents that I selected.
Okay.
So again, that's going to contain, you know, all of the required docs, any other stuff. To answer everyone's question, if you need to pull in a document from, let's say, CJMLS or something like that, you would do exactly what we did the first time. Click Add. You can go into DocuSign Forms again. And then you can always go into the CJMLS listing group and pull in those from there, or you can go into the CJMLS library if you're looking, again, for a very specific form. So these are all the CJMLS forms that they've provided. So Jenny, to your point, if you wanted to, if you were listing it in both places, you could go into the either the CJMLS group or the CJMLS library. It's up to you.
That's cool.
And you can select, you know, whichever forms you then need to drop into your room.
So what needs to also be taught is that if you are listing it, let's say in Central Jersey, you have to use their forms, otherwise it's a fine. So so that needs to really be clarified. And same thing with if you're listing in Clifton, in the Passaic County, which I don't see any of the documents in that MLS. So it has to be very clear that the first priority in Central Jersey, you have to use their documents.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, no worries with that. Again, that's something Sally and I are working on with the checklists, and there's a lot of moving pieces to this. Not everything is in place yet, but we're building that stuff out, so.
Hey, do you intend in Basking Ridge tomorrow? I gotta meet tomorrow afternoon. I gotta meet with Ryan at 3 o'clock or whatever. Can I maybe see you right after that, or is there a chance you and I may not connect?
No. I think, yeah, I think 3 o'clock, I should be okay. I should be out of my last.
Meet with Ryan probably around 3,
Yeah,
but after that, I have questions about Facebook, and I had an account in Facebook under my old company for Colwell, and I'd like to change all that to Keller Williams, and I'm not exactly sure how to do it. I don't know if you're my go-to or somebody else.
yeah. When you come in tomorrow, Ryan and I will meet with you, and we'll talk to Christy too, and we'll help get that straightened out.
Oh, so Christy is really the Facebook guru, right?
She's our director of marketing. So
Awesome.
in that case, yeah. So we'll touch base on that tomorrow.
Awesome. I want to do business cards too, but not necessarily. It doesn't have to be tomorrow. But again, I don't need a professional photo shoot. I could even like do a selfie or have somebody just take the picture and run the business cards that way.
Yeah, we can touch base on all that tomorrow. Let me wrap up here for everybody else, and then we'll
Yeah.
touch base after.
Sorry
Yeah.
about that.
No
Yes,
problem.
please.
So in that case, everybody, when you add your documents in like we did, the last step that I'm going to show today is, of course, how to add in those signatures. So in this case, let's just do the regular listing agreement, which I dropped into the room, which you'll see it's going to be ordered when you first drop everything in based on the naming convention. So of course, since I dropped in some CJMLS forms, those are going to appear first, GSMLS, and then KW, NJAR, etc. So it goes in alphabetical order, just to kind of keep that in mind. So in this case, let's just click into the listing agreement. Okay, so you'll see that when I did that, the reason we went through that entire process of adding in the person's information in the detail section is because all of these boxes will automatically fill. So again, we have the sellers, Mary and Bob. I added Mary's email, so we do have that. The terms of the agreement, the office information, all of that has populated in here. So again, you can get to this point and type in and add any additional information wherever you need to. If you need to make any changes for whatever reason, maybe you spelled something wrong, you can always change what's already in there as well, but it saves you the time of having to manually input it. So the more information you plug in, the more it's gonna, be beneficial when you get to this point.
Before you move on the signatures, in dot loop, you hit those 3 dots on the right-hand side, open all, and you go through all the documents and put all the information in. Can you
Yep.
do that here?
Yes. So what you would do in that case
I'll just
is
click it all off? Okay.
Yep, you can do it that way. Yep. So here, for the purposes of today, let me just go ahead. Let me just, I'll finish up with the listing agreement here.
I'm sorry.
No. That's a great question, though.
You know me. If there's a step I can save, I'm gonna save it.
That's completely fine. Completely fine. So again, what I want to point out is you'll see that all of these boxes are filled out. However, the signatures are not in place. So these signatures won't be added until the last step, which is what we're doing now. We're just going through, filling out the document, making sure everything is correct. Once you're good with everything, you'll hit save and close.
And go to envelope.
There you go, yeah, and go to envelope. So check off whatever forms they need to sign. Again, you can check off as many, or in this case, let me just do the listing agreement. And whenever you check off, you'll even see it. Whenever you check off a box, it opens up these tabs right above it. And so there is one, it is the 4th down, that says create an envelope. And so the way that I've been explaining it to people is I'm in our prospecting room teaching at the moment. I'm in the room. Let's do the physical example here. Let's say I have all of my paperwork, written out in front of me. I have it all laid out in my room, which is similar to what you see here. The idea behind it is I want to put it in an envelope and mail it out to my clients for their signature. So it's practically like taking the paperwork, folding it up, putting it in an envelope, and mailing it off for their signature. So in that case, what I've done is I've checked off the document or the documents that I want to send for signature. And then once you do that, the fourth option here says create envelope. And so when doing it at this point, it's just going to give you a couple options that we're going to walk through together. We're going to fill it out. The first step that it's going to let you do is envelope name. And it's always going to revert to please DocuSign. You can keep it very high level like that. You can put a more personalized message if you wish, but basically all it's going to do is just inform your client that, they need to, sign these forms. So really not too much you need to worry about there. After that, it's going to show all of the documents either that you clicked on. So I only clicked on one, which is just the listing commission. If you need to add more for whatever reason, let's say you didn't add them the first time, you can always click this button here. It says room docs. That'll allow you to add in any other forms that you may have missed. So pretty simple there. And then below that, this is where you get to add your recipients. So in this case, if you've done everything that we've done today, start to finish, I'm going to click add recipient, and that'll give you a few options. I will tell everybody for now, do not worry about room participants or email address. Really, room participants, you're not going to use that one too much yet, so I'm not worried about that. Email address you would only use if you want to send someone just an email copy. Again, maybe you're working with a younger couple and their parents want to see the paperwork or something like that. You can manually add them there so they receive a copy. But in this case, if you're sending it off for their signatures, like we're going to do now, click the button that says pre-tagged roles. And that's going to pull up a list of a couple options. So of course, because this is a listing that we're doing, it's going to show the sellers. If this was for a buyer, it would say buyer. If it was for a tenant, it would say tenant. But in this case, because we did a listing, it's going to show sellers. It's going to show the listing agent, so obviously you, and of course, listing broker. I do need to still add Sally as the listing broker, so that will be updated shortly. But for the purposes of today, let's say we're sending it off to our clients for their signature. All you would have to do is check off. I know we have 2 sellers, so I'm going to go ahead and check them off. And then you can select the recipient on the right-hand side. So because we've added all their information already, I'm just going to select Mary as seller 1. And I'll select Bob as seller 2. Because let's say I am the listing agent or you're the listing agent, if you need to sign anything as well, you can go ahead and check yourself off as the listing agent. I know I'm in here as well. And then again, I will be adding Sally here shortly. Again, if this needs to go off to Sally for her signature, you can do that as well. Each party that you are adding to this page, they will receive their own version for them to sign only. The nice thing is, when it comes back to you, everyone's signatures will be on one document. So no need to worry there. So I'm going to add all 3, Mary, Bob, and myself. And then, of course, it's just going to show who they are, what their role is, their name, and their email. And in this case, similar to, very similar to .loop, gives you the option. Maybe they just need to view it. Maybe they need to sign it, whatever the case may be. I know everyone needs to sign this. So I'm going to go ahead and just keep it like that. Now, what I didn't show you, and here's the cool feature, is, oops, actually, let me move that window here. Okay, sorry. We've added those recipients. And then at the bottom, you can add another message. So again, that might be something like, please sign such and such. If you have any questions, give me a call, whatever the case may be. You then can either hit save and close or hit next. So here comes the cool part. If you hit next, it's going to take you to a screen that looks like this. What it's doing is it's finding all the places on that form or those forms where that individual needs to sign. So I will kind of cover all the rest of this detail on both sides at another time, but just know the most important thing that you can see here, if you scroll down, it automatically puts in all the places that those individuals need to sign. And you'll see that they're color coded. So if you go to the upper left-hand corner here, you'll see my name and the color, little color yellow. If you click on that, it will actually show you, like if I, depending on who you're viewing it as. So if I'm viewing it as myself, you can actually, there's a button that says recipient preview. You can actually click on that and it'll show you where that individual is going to sign. So I selected myself, so it'll show that I'm going to sign right here. If I then, let's say, click on Mary, I can see all of the places that Mary is going to sign. So that way I know, okay, Mary is set to sign right here. So again, it just gives you an idea. It provides some comfort knowing that your documents are going to be signed the way you want them to be and how they should be. And so the very last step, and I'm not going to do it because again, I put in test information. All you're going to do is hit send, and these documents are going to go off to their client. And much like you do in .loop, if you select multiple documents, they will receive them in one email, and it will walk down the list, and they'll be able to sign in all of the
I'm
places.
sorry.
Mhm.
I have one question when you're done.
That's pretty much where I was going to end it for today. That is
Can
the
you
process from start to finish.
Can you quickly show me where archive is?
Yes, so hold on, let me go back. Okay, so I'll just save and close. I'm gonna get out of here. Now, are you talking about archiving documents or?
Yeah, if I pull the wrong document in, I don't really want that document.
Yep, so you'll see here's all of the paperwork in our room. So let's say we wanted to archive, let's say the CJMLS forms that we dropped. So if you check those off, that opens up this tab right here, kind of
Right.
where we were to send the envelope. You'll see that you can either archive, unarchive, or delete them.
Oh, you can delete here. I like
Delete.
it.
You can delete, yes.
And is there a copy function too?
Yep, very first one.
Okay.
Mhm. Copy, move. So again, I know some people might want to change the order. As I had mentioned, they're in alphabetical order. If you want to move them, sorry, ignore that. It won't allow you to change the order here. It'll allow you to move them to.
Oh, we can't drag it like we used to be able to drag it.
No, fortunately not. It stays in alphabetical order.
Sam, I noticed your photos on these documents.
Mhm.
Are our photos there as well since it's in command? Or did you have to upload your photo in DocuSign?
So that I have to remember that comes from DocuSign. I went and filled out my DocuSign profile a little more. It's not required at all. It's completely optional. I'll walk through the settings on a future class.
Okay, thank you.
about it. Your clients don't see that. That's just for you to see basically in your personal settings here. But yes, that's how I do.
The clients would not see your photo?
No, they'll just get an email with the paperwork, just
Okay,
like that.
got it. Yeah, because okay.
And that's kind of all I wanted to show for today. Again, because I'm surprised I still have a voice at this point. I'm sure you guys have questions. I feel like you guys have questions, which is fine. Again, we're going to continue to do these classes. We'll meet one-on-one. No worries. It's a bit of repetition. And again, it really is just myself and Sally setting all this up. So there is some stuff that needs to be updated still. Doing my best. So,
Thank you. You did.
Thank
a
you,
great
Sam.
job, And I know it's hard talking all day. You're recording it. I gotta go back and look at this again. It's just a couple of steps
of course.
I'm confused about. And then if I have technical issues with this, I don't know, the device and I don't know if I'm using the right email. I'm still not sure about that. If it's my Gmail or my KW. Anyway, I will talk to you, but I need to watch this again.
No worries. And
Twice.
I got you, Joan. I got you, Joan.
I know, but I can't bug you at like 10 o'clock at night if I run it. I have to know what I'm doing.
we'll get there, and we'll, like I said, for those little tech things, we'll get you set up. We'll get that straightened out. That will not be an issue moving forward. So once we take care of that, we'll, and
Yeah,
that's what I'm here for. So
thank you for your patience and being so generous with all your information.
no worries. No
Thanks,
worries.
Sam.
Of course,
Thank
of course. I'll be in touch. Bye, guys. Have a
Okay,
good one.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.